Be sure and tell them Large Marge sent ya.
In the 90s, we were just teeny tykes. We liked our movies and our bikes. We wanted to be DJs, but we were just teeny gals. So we went off to college and we remained best pals. 20 years later, we're still watching flicks and we're bringing you the feeling bit by bit. Sweetie and Sweetie are here to say it's the Large Marge Santa's podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Large Marge Santa's podcast, your favorite podcast where two sweetie sisters talk about movies that shaped their childhood. I'm Sweetie with an IE.
And I'm Sweetie with a Y.
Just when you've given up on us, we're back.
We're back, baby.
I did a little historical research, and we did only one Christmas movie last year. And coincidentally, about reindeers, because this time around...
Wait, what was the movie we did last year?
Yes, it's about a reindeer.
Oh, Prancer?
Yeah, it was quite good. It was quite good.
I'm confusing that with the one that was like the not a Christmas story, or was it the one that like it's called like The Christmas Story or something? Is that different than Prancer? I think so. I don't know. I have to go back into the archives.
I feel like there's one that we're missing that is like Sam Waterston. Waterston is in it. Waterston from Law and Order. Because I saw it like pop up in one of like Disney Christmas holiday something. Anyway, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, there's many that we're missing.
We're not doing as many. Yeah, we're not doing as many movies as we used to. So it's good to kind of maybe not do as many holiday movies and save them. So
True.
We're thinking about maybe just doing two with our lazy schedule. So we decided, and maybe holiday magic, Christmas surprise. Maybe we'll do another. Who knows? But we decided for possibly one out of our two movies we're going to do this year, we had got to tackle the monolith that is Rudolph.
The red-nosed reindeer.
So I'm embarrassed that I've never seen this movie.
Me neither. We've talked about it before, how we hate this because these ones, I don't know, they were like too old and like we didn't like stop motion. I don't know.
It just was not part of our Christmas traditions, and it is a lot of people's. And the funny thing is, so we're talking about the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, part of the Rankin and Bass kind of stop motion animation. I always thought it was claymation, but I guess it's like puppets in a lot of ways, or in most cases. And this one is from 1964. So real famous. Like watching this yesterday, I knew like a lot of the imagery. I knew obviously the songs. I was like, I'm very familiar like where this is in like pop culture, and where it stands. But have I ever sat down on the couch and watched this movie my entire life? I like literally have not. It was wild. It was wild. I feel like I don't know. I had a very like weird experience with it, knowing kind of so much about something but never seeing it.
That's I mean, like I didn't know pretty much anything about this except for the fact that it was like, puppets, which puppets always make me quite uneasy. And so I think that was like my overall hesitation with watching this. Had no idea that like Elf was essentially an homage to this entire movie, which I thought was like so interesting. Because you're seeing it, you're like, wow, yeah, those are the same costumes they wear, and this is what the North Pole looks like, and that's what the snowman looks like, and even the little like the critters.
Is that like allowed? Did they have to pay?
So
like,
it was in the trivia. There was almost this whole like hubbub where they almost had to like halt production and change Buddy's costume to be blue instead of green or whatever, so that it wasn't as direct. But then they like contacted the people who own the rights to Rudolph, and they were gonna pull it, and then they determined that the rights were never secured correctly for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, so it really didn't matter if anyone referenced it because they didn't properly put that into like their legal
Oh, well,
clause
that's
or
good.
whatever clause.
Good for John Favreau or whatever.
Yeah, but that was just like so funny to me. That was like, damn, like yeah, this is pretty much Elf. But yeah, I knew really nothing about it.
Yeah, it just like we just weren't interested in it. It just wasn't like our kind of Christmas movie. We weren't like technology snobs or anything. But like, and I think honestly, it's like pretty well done, especially for that time period, and like what they were able to achieve. And yeah, I just like, I don't know, just like weren't into these. So this like company, like I said, Rankin and Bass, did like a lot of holiday movies. So I watched one the other day. Santa Claus is Coming to Town, kind of same idea, but it's the story of Santa Claus. The Year Without a Santa. They did the Frosty cartoon, not like the puppet. I don't know if there is a puppet one, but they did like that Frosty cartoon, which I also watched the other night. We've really been like knocking these out now that we have a 2-year-old, and we're like, which like Christmas movies will she sit for? She did sit down with us last night and watch this, and I'd say interested and laughed and was into about 3/4 of it. Then it got, and I didn't realize it was going to be this long. I thought it was like 30 minutes, but it's almost like an hour long.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a thing. So this is from 1964. So, you know, centered around, okay, so I did a little history about, you know, Rudolph itself, the song. So was actually made in 1939, but not really popularized the song until 1947 by Gene Autry. And the whole like Rudolph story was actually created by this Montgomery Ward department store like during the holiday season to like get people in the store and like sell like toys and shit. So yeah, so that's like where it came from. It's not like in the legend of Santa is there like this Rudolph with like a red nose.
Even in the like 'Twas the Night Before Christmas poem, there's no mention of, I guess not, of reindeer?
Yeah.
Or maybe not Rudolph.
I don't think he's even mentioned. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer, now Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen. He only has this.
He's not in it.
The central ones, yeah. So this came up like a little bit later. So this was kind of like that company's Rankin Bass, their first like I think movie that they did, because I think Santa Claus Coming to Town is like 1970s. So who's in this? So not like too many people, like a lot of oldies, a lot of old actors, but obviously the main one being good old Burl Ives. If you ever listen to any Christmas song in your whole life, you know Burl Ives, who has what's his famous one? I freaking looked it up the other day. Have a holly jolly.
Have a holly jolly Christmas.
And he sings a lot of stuff. There's a whole soundtrack to this, and he sings a version of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So, you know, Burl Ives, he plays the voice of the Sam the Snowman. You have Billy May Richards as the voice of Rudolph. Did you recognize that voice at all? Throwing that out there to you. In some other animated
No, but
world.
I know it's a woman.
Yep.
Billy. Confusing. But no, I didn't look into her repertoire.
Okay, because you're going to love it. She is Tenderheart Care Bear. Think about it now. Think about that. Which is like the best Care Bear, the brown one with the heart in his belly, who's like
I thought we
the
hated
leader. Yeah. No, he's like the leader.
Wait, the lion or the real Care
No,
Bear?
Tenderheart is the brown bear with the red
Yeah.
heart on his belly, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. You have Larry D. Mann as Yukon Cornelius, and he was in like The Sting, in
He
The Heat
sounded
of the Night.
familiar,
So
But
yeah,
he wasn't a voice of anyone I recognized, so that was disappointing.
No, just like some old classic movies from like the 60s and 70s. Yeah, so that was it. So like no one like real crazy in this except Burl Ives, and I think they actually added Burl Ives in later. Like they had someone else record all like the snowman stuff, then they like wanted to attach like some very important like pop singer of the time to this, so they could like get the attention. So this started airing in 1964 on Christmas, and is the longest like continuous running movie of all time. So it's the only movie that's ever has run the longest. Like literally every Christmas since 1964, CBS has run this. So that's pretty cool. So like we said, it's totally a tradition for so many people. It's huge in pop culture, and it's very sweet. It's strange though. It's a strange little story. I'm not sure what was going on in that writer's room. Maybe a little too many cocktails.
They really took some liberties. Yeah. A lot of choices, a lot of interesting choices that I was really shook by, I'll say. Yeah. Who knew there was so many weird plot developments in a 55-minute movie?
It just kept going all over the place. And like, the story of Rudolph being one of like exclusion, right? And like kind of like discriminating against people who are different
racism.
than you. Yeah.
Rude.
So like total racism. Was it a coincidence that the misfit elf was also maybe gay?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah. Yeah, just
so it's
like different.
Yeah, different. And what an interesting this came out in the 60s. So like when you're thinking about the 60s, you're not really, you're thinking about like civil rights movement and stuff like that. So I guess there is the discrimination in that sort of revolutionary time, like, but I don't think that's what they were going for. But it is a story about like if you being like people accepting you like
for who you are,
and accepting people who are different. And even though I think it, the apologies could have been a little bit better at the end.
No, there were no apologies. I was like, Rudolph,
even if there were any.
Tell them to fuck
and
off.
I'm really upset that Santa was like the ringleader of this discrimination.
Unbelievable. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, you got a bright nose. Would you like to ride and lead my sleigh? And it's like, no, I don't, because you were rude as fuck to me before. Like, Santa.
Well, right. And is the moral not like accept everybody for their differences? Instead, okay, well, you're accepted if you can become of use to us.
If you have value, yeah.
That's what happens.
Then
we'll
say
little
you're good.
bit
Yeah,
like
very
muddled
interesting.
in this whole story. Yeah.
Take
So I had a little bit of difficulties with that, but sweet movie. We'll talk about the crazy plot. It's a musical. Not loving, most of the jams. I'd say pretty forgettable, though some of them are kind of like old standards, so they're not like they're classics. But most of them were like pretty throwaway songs. You're not really gonna remember too many, except Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I also love that like so many of the script obviously revolved around the Rudolph the Reindeer song.
Yeah.
So they were literally pulling lines from the song.
Yeah, it was
Cheaters.
Reindeer games. Love it. Cool. Well, I'm excited to talk about the weird.
Yeah, totally. Oh, and last thing I want to say is that the puppetry, I guess, and sort of stop motion animation that they did with those puppets was all done in Japan. But then, like, all of the voice recording and the song recording, everything was done in Canada. So it was still, like, Japanese animators, which do have, like, is something that they're really quite good at over there in Japan. Whether it's video games or animation, that they did the animation, which is pretty cool. Or, like, even, like, Godzilla, I'm thinking, it's like, puppets and stuff. Abominable Snowman.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So it's time for the sweetie synopsis.
Sweeties.
You'll like it and wear it.
Donner, biggest bully there is.
Yeah. He was really scary. Also,
Bad dad.
You're telling me Rudolph is Donner's son? I feel like that's not true.
That's not true at all. And like, why? I mean, we'll talk about it. Okay, so, geez, where to start? So, I mean, we open on Sam the Snowman, who this is like very classic. Like, I'm gonna tell you a story, and he's like kind of giving us the lay of the land. Like, this is the North Pole. You may have heard of it because it's where Santa Claus lives. So now we're introduced to Santa, who, unfortunately, Santa and Mrs. Claus refer to each other as Papa and Mama, and I hated it. I'll tell you, it just like really skeeved me out. Did it skeeve you out? He was like, it's Santa Claus calling Mrs. Claus, "Oh, Mama, that's not a thing," and "Oh, Papa, you need to eat more," and like, I just like I hate that. So
Well,
creepy.
I will say that in the context of having kids, you do end up calling your partner like mom and like dad. Like I almost always call
Yeah, that's
Sweetie
true.
Jimmy like dad now. So, but that's like in the context of kid. That's only because we have a kid,
Right.
And like I'm always talking
Right,
about.
there's
him,
no kids
So
here.
Just like translate. There's no kids here. Number one. Number two. Did you, yay or nay, Santa's downtime outfit, which was basically like a Sherlock cap.
I
What
didn't
is
even
that called?
notice.
Oh, when he like goes and visits the reindeer.
I was
It was like a Sherlock cap, with the
deer
flaps.
stalker.
Deer stalker, and then like kind of a really nice coat you'd probably get at a department store. Yeah, his fashion, because I know obviously Santa only wears that outfit like
One night a
one
year.
day of the year, but that's just how you envision Santa. He has the downtime. He's a lot of downtime, but yeah, I was
Well, I was more-
impressed with his style.
I was more distracted by the fact that like Mrs. Claus was this like young Italian
Why was she
housewife. Why was she
Yeah,
brunette?
was she not that old?
I know. I was like, did Santa Claus marry a young hot mama? Like,
Who is that lady?
what? Like everyone knows what Mrs. Claus. Like, when did the imagery of Mrs. Claus turn from that to the old lady?
Well,
the
if you
like-
watch the next movie, Santa Claus
Yeah.
Come to Town, the backstory
What's
about
the
Santa,
deets?
you find out that her name is Jessica.
What?
Yeah, right. And she's like a hot ticket.
Wow.
And she has like red hair though.
What?
In that movie, and is like super hot. So
Can't keep up with this.
That
wow.
one's weird.
Just crazy. All right, so we move on from them. Now we meet Rudolph, Donner's son, allegedly. So now this is a world where, like growing up, I just assumed that like those 8 reindeer or whatever, or there's 7. Is Rudolph 9 or does Rudolph make them 8?
Rudolph is 9.
Okay.
Right?
So the 8,
Dasher and Dancer and Prancer. and
the
Vixen,
8
Comet
original
and Cupid
reindeer-
and Donner and Blitzen. Yeah, 8.
I just assumed that like the 8 original reindeer were just like the reindeer. They didn't age, they didn't die, they just that's what they did. But this movie seems to suggest that A, all the reindeer are fucking. B, the reindeer are getting cycled out when they retire and get replaced by new reindeer.
Yeah.
And then C, third thing, no does allowed in the sleigh ride.
Yeah. What's that?
So it was just like funny to me. So Rudolph is the offspring of Donner and his nameless poor doe wife who, doesn't get much screen time. And Rudolph comes out with a red nose. And so here is the first interesting choice they have made as filmmakers, which is to accompany this red glowing nose with the sound of an extremely high-pitched tea kettle. And it's confusing because you don't know if people are reacting to the tea kettle noise or to the fact that his nose is red, because all of what they're saying makes you think it's just because it's red. And so my thinking is that they must have added that tea kettle whistle in to show some like punctuation of brightness, because
Yeah.
I think it's hard to get across the concept of brightness in stop motion puppetry.
Right.
And so they must have added that noise in to be like, see, something's happening. But it was confusing because you're like, but is he also making that noise? Because
Yeah.
like, that's annoying. Like, I get that. I get why people are making fun of him for that. But like, just having a red nose, what's the big idea? And so Donner is immediately disgusted and ashamed by this red-nosed son that he has birthed. And it's like, they're your genes, dude. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's not like it just like came out of nowhere. Like somewhere in you was this red nose.
And like, how does that? We obviously come to find later, it doesn't like make you do your job less. It helps you do your job.
He
but
just
like,
looks
why
different.
Why? Right, but that's like the
Every
whole thing
deer
is
looks
that,
the
like,
same. Give me a break.
How like? Well, they don't all look the same because his
Yeah.
like friend there. What was his friend's name?
I don't know.
Something. Bombs or something.
Former
No,
friend.
something like weird. And he had like all these little freckles
Yeah.
under him. All the little does have like bows on them. Not that you can't like take those off. So that's how. Yeah. And then as Sweetie said, there's a lot of backstory, or there's a lot of stories about like the does dating. And I'm like, this is a part of this story I did not need to hear.
We did not need to
I
know
don't
this.
need to know about Rudolph's dating life.
So
do
weird.
not care.
Oh man, too funny. So anyway, so Donner, long story short, Donner is a bad dad, part of the bad dad club. Very rude, very mean to his son. Makes him wear this like nose cap over his nose to like hide his red nose, and it makes Rudolph have like a very like nasally weird voice. So doesn't want him to look weird, but is fine with him now talking and acting weird because he's wearing a thing on his nose. So then we switch to the elves. So now we meet the elves and we meet Hermy, who is an elf.
Herbie.
What? Not Herbie. I know. I thought
Not
it was
Herbie, but it was supposed to be Herbie.
Oh, I wrote it down as Herbie first, but then when they
Me
kept saying
too.
it later,
Oh my God.
it was like,
I
oh, never
crossed
mind,
it
it's
out.
Hermy. Hermy's cute. That would be a cute name for like a cat or something, or a dog,
yeah,
maybe like a pug. But Hermy, thing about Hermy is he does not like making toys. So similar to like Buddy the Elf, he was just bad at making toys. Hermy just like doesn't want to be there. Hermy is interested more in being a dentist. And so this is the next interesting choice. Was there at this time in the world pressure for people to start paying attention to their teeth? I wonder. Like, when did dentistry become like a big thing? Because, you know, like in the olden days and in Britain still, you know, not a lot of attention paid to teeth, I feel like, until, you know, more recently.
I don't know. I mean,
Was this
is
propaganda? Dentist propaganda.
That, doesn't propaganda. Because that's not like when you're like thinking of dream jobs you want to do instead of making toys.
No.
You're not like,
Nobody wants
dentistry,
to be a dentist.
That's it.
The best joke I ever heard.
That was an odd choice, though they did say in the trivia that after this, Hermy was then used by dental professionals and
I feel
got
like
marketed.
I've seen
like,
him in some
that
dental
way.
marketing,
Yeah.
and now that makes
Yeah.
sense. Best joke I ever heard was like, what do you call a doctor who failed out of med school? A dentist. And so like that, yeah, like I agree. Very strange. And it was like, if this was like a Halloween story, sure, maybe I would buy the like dentist tie-in because people are eating a lot of candy. Holidays, like you're just, I don't know, you're mostly eating cookies. Not to say you don't get cavities from eating cookies and or, you know, ribbon candy I can see being a hot topic, but very strange choice. Was there a dentist in this writer's room? Was this dentist propaganda? Probably. But anyway, so he just wants to be a dentist. So he's kind of like shirking his responsibilities and is like, I'm just going to read this book on dentistry instead. Actually, thanks. Bye. And so he decides to run away. So now we go back to Rudolph, who has joined the Reindeer Games, which is like a training avenue for deer who want to try out to be like on Santa's sleigh. My question is like, when is this happening? Because these other 8 reindeer don't seem to be going anywhere. Like, what are they dead? Like, are they old? Like, what is the time frame? How long are we training to be part of Santa's sleigh here? We don't know. So the captain or like the teacher for all of these reindeer children was it Comet? Was the coach?
Yeah.
I think it was Comet.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
And so they're teaching them all these games. Here, Rudolph meets Clarice, which I thought was super interesting because pretty much once this was probably like the last example of a character ever being named Clarice, because after Silence of the Lambs happened, you could never name your character Clarice in a movie, right? So I thought that was interesting. But Clarice is like,
isn't also once Rudolph happened, you could never name your son Rudolph.
who's naming anyone Rudolph? Oh, William
there were
Randolph.
There were Rudolphs prior to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh.
Like it was a name.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry for you.
Just like Kermit, did you know, was a name?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
Teddy Roosevelt's son,
Yeah, I
Kermit,
knew that.
very like name of the time. After Kermit the Frog, you ever heard that name given to a person?
Right.
Nope.
I could bring it back. It's cute. Maybe you can.
I know. I had
it on your
pushed
list?
that as a baby name. Yes,
Okay.
it was, and we had to take it off because Kermit, you know, like the Kermit the Frog thing. I
Oh,
was, come on, little Kermit,
I
just
think
like
it's
Hermy.
cute. Yeah, Hermy. So Clarice is, you know, he's Rudolph's crush, basically, is Clarice. And Clarice tells him something nice, like, you're nice. And he's like, yay! And has his, like, first crush and is, like, so happy that he's floating. And so that gives him, like, immediate points already in these reindeer games because they're like, wow, you're great at flying. You could totally be on the sled team. or the sleigh team. And he's like, yeah, you betcha. But then something happens. He laughs too hard. Something. His nose cover shoots off, and everybody sees his red whistling nose. And so everyone's horrified. The Comet's like, you have to get out of here right now. We can't have any red noses on this field. You, sir, are a shame. And then Santa comes over and he's like, shame on you, Donner, for birthing a red-nosed reindeer. And it's like, what? It was so weird. And
Wait, didn't Santa know about him though? Because they visit him in their little reindeer cave, and I thought he was like, oh, he like gave them basically this talk that said like, congratulations, but he can never be a reindeer pulling the sleigh because he's different. No,
I don't think so.
I thought that's what happened.
I know he came, but maybe his nose wasn't red yet. I don't know. It seemed to be like,
or they covered it up very early.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Covered it.
Oh, maybe
colored
that's
it
why.
black or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, meanwhile, I'm also like, how old are they supposed to be? 1 year old? And they're like, here's a crush, and you're gonna date Clarice now. But I don't know how reindeers work. So, reindeer work. Okay, so then Rudolph, very upset, as you would be, because people were just all very mean to you. All the other reindeer were making fun of him, just like in the song. Mm-hmm. It's true. And he runs away as well. So he meets up with Hermy, and they're like, hey, what are you up to? And he's like, well, nobody wants me. And Hermy's like, wow, I don't want to be an elf. Let's run away together. So, they run off into the snow world. Here they meet, do they meet the Misfit Toys first? Or do they meet the Prospector?
They meet Yukon Cornelius.
Okay, so Yukon
And what the hell is that guy doing there?
He's the greatest prospector in the North Pole or whatever, and he's just after gold and silver, apparently. And so he meets them. They find the Bumble snow monster, who is the abominable snowman, but then Cornelius calls him Bumble, like Bumble snowman. But then you can also call him the Yeti. So like I don't know which one we should go with. But anyways, he's scary and like tries to get them. Rudolph's nose is like very intriguing to this abominable snowman. They escape on like an iceberg or like an ice float or something, and that's how they get away. But he's still out there, like in the wilderness. So then they make it to the island of Misfit Toys. So here are more examples of things that are different, that have been exiled from civilization because they're different. So these are toys that are a little weird. So you have Charlie in the Box, for example, which like I would love a Charlie in the Box. Like, why not? That's funny.
Yeah. Also, like, there's nowhere, like, the name is, like, not on the toy. Who's going to know your name isn't Jack?
Just to pretend your name is Jack. Like, I don't know what to tell you, Charlie. So there's like that. There's like a doll that they never specify, like, what's wrong with the doll. So Sweetie and I were, like, discussing it last night. Like, what's up with that doll? I don't know. There were other examples of, like, a boat that sinks and, like, all these things.
Yeah. An elephant with
polka
polka-dotted
dots.
elephant.
Elephants can have polka dots. I don't care.
It just was like a new style. I mean, they did have ones that just functionally didn't really work. The train with square wheels.
Okay,
I don't know what happened there. So like some functional ones with made like a little bit more sense. But in general, are these toys that the elves messed up making in Santa's workshop, and then they just like tossed on this
dump
island?
them in the Misfit Island? Yeah, like what?
Yeah.
And then
it's the elves' mistake.
Maybe. And then they're stuck there until a child wants them or needs them or something. And then they get to be real toys? I kind of miss that part.
Yeah, I don't really understand.
Anyways, they meet the king, whose name is King Moonracer. He's a lion with wings. Who is he? Is he a toy? I don't know. He seems to just like make decisions, and
What's that guy?
nobody knows why. But Rudolph and Hermy and Cornelius get this like cute little cottage to live in, and things seem great. And then Rudolph's like, well, I don't want to put them at risk because the abominable snowman's gonna come and find us, and he's really obsessed with my nose, so I better get out of here. So he leaves in the middle of the night, and he's like, see ya. So now the storm comes, and it's 2 days before Christmas Eve. And who should run? Oh, wait. And then Rudolph comes back at this point? Yeah. No. Does he?
No. So he Yeah, no, he does make it. He
decides he's
lives,
mature.
like, amongst the animals,
Yeah.
and he's like constantly like running into the Yeti, but then like getting away.
Yeah.
But then he does finally make his way back to like the North Pole.
Okay, yeah, because he's like, I've decided, or like the voiceover of Sam the Snowman's like, he became mature and aged, and he was ready
Right.
to go back home.
Yeah, he got a little bit bigger. Now he's like a teenager, I guess. Right?
Even though I think
In
it's only been
deer
like
years.
6 months, or like not even.
6
I don't know,
minutes.
but yeah. So there's a bad storm. He goes home. Santa's like, well, bad news, kid. Like, your parents left to go find you, and your crush Clarice as well. They went out to go find you. They haven't come back yet. They might be dead. And he's like, what? And at no point is Santa like, I'm so sorry. I made you feel like you didn't belong here, and then now everybody's gone looking for you. Like, at
Santa's
no point.
Asshole.
At no point does Santa take any responsibility or accountability for anything that has happened here. He's a dick.
Santa
whatever.
really hates the like there's like a couple scenes where the elves have like a chorus and like a Christmas chorus, and he's like really mean about that.
Yeah,
too.
he sucks. Santa sucks. I'm trying to figure out what this note is that I wrote here. I wrote abominable exclamation point, and then in parentheses I wrote Empire, EMPIRE. Is that
Empire
right?
State Building.
Maybe. Oh, Empire Strikes Back. Okay, so,
Oh.
so Rudolph is like, where could my mom and dad and Clarice be? I know, the Abominable Snowman probably got them. So he goes to the Abominable Snowman's cave, and this scene is very Empire Strikes Back. And I like screamed because
pretty scary.
the Abominable Snowman, as Rudolph is like, comes in just the nick of time to see Abominable Snowman trying to take like a bite out of Clarice, the reindeer, and I was like, I like it was just like so like he could have just like bit her head off and like we would whatever. So he like tries to save them, gets knocked unconscious by like an icicle or something. Meanwhile, Cornelius and Hermy come bounding in to save the day. Hermy comes to the rescue by extracting all of the teeth from the Abominable Snowman. We don't know how.
This was the biggest plot hole for me.
I looked up and they were gone.
Yeah. So like, Yukon Cornelius, they get him outside the Yeti by Hermy pretending to be a pig because Yukon Cornelius is like, there's no way they like deer better than pork. They just love the nice pork dinner. So pretend to be a pig. So Hermy's outside going like, oink, oink, oink. The thing comes running out. Yukon Cornelius is like on the top of the cave and lets down some icicles. So he like kind of like knocks out the Yeti a little bit, but like not really. And then all of a sudden he like goes back into the cave, or Yukon Cornelius does to like help the reindeer, I guess. And then the Yeti comes storming in suddenly with like a gaping mouth with no teeth, and you see Hermy outside like with all of his teeth on the ground. How did this little elf like disable?
Because he's been
this
studying
giant Yeti and pulled out each individual tooth. My thought was initially like, oh, the Yeti is so mad and angry because he has like a toothache, and he like helped him with his toothache, but he just literally like took every tooth out of his mouth.
He's only been reading that dentistry book, so I guess somewhere in there was here's how to take out a Yeti's teeth or something.
I know, but he's very big, and that's painful.
I know. Super super big plot hole, but teeth are gone, and then the Yeti like chases them, and then there's this kind of like sequence, and Cornelius like falls down this like abyss with the Yeti, and so you're like, whoa, is Cornelius dead? And they're like, a second of like them crying, and they're like, well, okay, we gotta go, and then they leave.
I really knew the guy anyway.
And so they go back to the North Pole, but don't worry, the door's open. Knock at the door. Cornelius is there with his new friend, the Abominable Snowman, who he says has been reformed. He's a reformed Bumble now. What the fuck does that mean? They fell down a hole and then he came out a nice Abominable Snowman. So now the Abominable Snowman's job is to put the ornaments on the tree because he's like tall enough, and he's like nice and helps people now. I don't get it. Was there brainwashing involved? How did it happen so quickly? I don't know. Very interesting. But the reason Cornelius says why they did not die is because, didn't I tell you, Bumbles bounce? And so, okay, Sure, but like I'm more concerned about the reform aspect of this and what that means. Anyways, the storm is so bad that Santa's over here being like, guys, Christmas is canceled. It's canceled. I can't see anything. I can't. Wait a minute, Rudolph, you got a big bright nose. Would you like to light my sleigh? And here's the moment for Rudolph to make a great speech, right? Of like, no, I will not be your Rudolph because you shouldn't treat people badly. Blah, blah. You know, like there could have been something. Santa could have been like, I'm really sorry I made you feel that way. I guess I didn't realize how valuable you were in case there's ever a storm. Like, there's nothing like that. He's just like, want to be the head of my sleigh? And Rudolph's like, yeah, I did it. Yeah. And it's like, no, like, dude, say no. But, you know, didn't want Christmas to be canceled, whatever. And then the reindeer go off, except without Donner. Did you notice that? He's like behind, waving, bye, son. Good luck.
Whoa.
Who took his place? Because Rudolph's in the front, and we know there's 9 reindeer. So it doesn't make a lick of sense. They should have just had some other reindeer birth Rudolph. I don't know why Donner had to have this like tie-in.
Yeah. I don't know either.
Very weird. But anyways, so off they go. They sing the Holly Jolly Christmas song, and then they go to the island of Misfit Toys as their first stop because I guess Rudolph told them that Santa would come for them.
Yes. And
they believed him.
Now this is a different. So they corrected this. So I guess the first release of this movie in 1964, there was like no mention of the Misfit Toys after the Misfit Toys scene on the island, basically. And all these little kids wrote in and were like, what happened to those Misfit Toys? Like, did they find homes? The kids were very concerned about all these little Misfit Toys.
Good for
them. It is like very sad.
Yeah.
And like the last scene that they had was like the little doll crying. These like look like glass tears like, coming out of her little. Yeah, really cool effect. And they're just around this like lonely little campfire, and they're like, I guess no one's coming for us. It's Christmas Eve. And, like, blah, blah, blah.
Like a hobo campfire, and they're like, yeah, well, it was a good run.
That got righted, and so he does tell Santa like, you need to like pick up the Misfit Toys and get those to some good homes, you know?
Yeah.
So he does. So they stop by the Misfit Toys. They jump into his magic bag, and then, but weird though, because I thought Santa went down chimneys, put the toys by the thing. In this version, you have the Misfit Toys being attached to umbrellas and just being like shot out of the sled. So I don't know where they were going. This seems like a con. Find your kid. Like,
yeah. You're in charge.
No, it was very weird.
Very interesting.
Very, very weird. And then obviously they sing the song. They sing the whole song. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Good song. Good song. And then that's the flick. And that's, happy days for Rudolph. He'll go down in history, which he did.
Yeah, as Sweetie said, it's only 55 minutes long. It felt a lot longer. At some point I was like, is this over? And then I was like, wait, they haven't even done Christmas yet. Christmas is still 2 days away? What? So that was funny. But yeah, so many strange choices. I think overall, sweet movie. I didn't hate it. It didn't make me super uneasy. The puppetry was like okay for me. But yeah, the songs really boring. Like other than the famous ones. There's like this weird love song that happened for like 3 seconds. And then they were like, this is not a good song. And they just like gave up. The Island of Misfit Toys is one that people do like, I think, and have mentioned as like a Christmas favorite, if I'm not wrong. That song was okay. I don't remember how it goes, but that was kind of cute.
Yeah, some are just like dated, like too high, ranges. Like the little reindeer girl, like Clarice has this like kind of love-ish kind of song. The I'm a misfit, that was like kind of cute when like they were Hermy and him were like singing their little song. And then and then you have like Silver and Gold, which is I think like an old standard. And then the Holly Jolly Christmas. There's another like famous Christmas one thrown in there. Anyway, I mean, would be a fun album to put on during Christmas, I guess. Sure. I'm sure they made like a boatload of money off of that. But yeah, like sweet, totally understand. This is like a Christmas tradition for so many people, like so sweet. And like we all have those, right? Like every family has like movies that they have just like they watch like every year, or several that you like have to watch every year. And it's like one of my favorite things about Christmas. Like you're like, okay, like you know, it does, those movies don't really play any other time, you know, like this season is not complete until I see Rudolph, you know. And I don't know, I don't think it's aired yet on CBS. I don't know when they normally air it. Is it like
Probably the like
right
ABC,
like
whatever the
Christmas
ABC
Eve?
family 25 Days of Christmas or whatever.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's definitely on that list for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so I have a couple things. So let's not forget, and I don't know when this happened, but okay, everyone knows, like I said, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer song, created in 1939, made popular in 47. There has been bajillion iterations of it thus far. Now, growing up as kids, you know, there was this extra version that we all learned with like the little add-ons to the lyrics. Okay, when did that start? When did we learn that? Like, where did that come from? No, I didn't. I'm just thinking of it now when we were singing it. So I'll do a little sampling for you. So, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, like a light bulb. And if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows.
It glows, right?
All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names.
Like Pinocchio. No. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games.
Like Monopoly.
Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say,
Ho, ho, ho.
Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then how the reindeer loved him. And they shouted out with glee. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. You'll go down in history.
Like George Washington.
Yes. So it's like, why do we know that?
I don't know. I'm gonna look it up.
Okay.
But yeah, that's
so
funny.
I like love that song. There's also one. Do you remember the like
Jingle Bells?
Jingle Bells.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Batman smells.
What was this? This must have been like a '90s. Like,
I know.
let's do silly, gross out lyrics instead.
And somehow like got viral, probably just by, this is like pre-viral time, so this is like through word of mouth or something, that like suddenly like every kid you went to elementary school with knew this alternate version of Jingle Bells with like Batman characters in it. Like, so funny.
Totally.
I love the 90s.
Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an
an
egg. Okay.
Batmobile lost a wheel.
So it seems like most
Amazing.
people learned these extra Rudolph lyrics when they did a Christmas play or a Christmas concert in school. So it seems like the teacher spread this thing.
So that's how it was done, because we were all doing Christmas concerts.
Yeah, I guess.
That's pretty cool.
But there's not a lot of info on like where that came from, which I'm bummed
Like
about.
who made the
Yeah,
version
who
up?
made
But
this
we all
up?
know the exact same version. It's
Right.
not like,
It's very
and it's like specific names attached, like
right.
like
This guy
Monopoly,
says
George
he thinks
Washington.
it was Nixon, like George Nixon, like Richard Nixon.
Well, that would be interesting. I wonder if every generation has tweaked it to make like.
Yeah, but you don't want to go down in history like Richard
Yeah.
Nixon. I think think Washington is the better get
That's
there.
so true. That's so true.
Very
Good stuff. Good
strange.
stuff. Okay. Personal anecdote to this movie. So, like I said, never seen it. But when I was first dating my husband's sweet-eyed Jimmy, he gave me a bunch of Christmas ornaments our first year together. We started dating August, so by December we were pretty hot and heavy. And he gave me some Christmas ornaments. So one of the ones that he gave me, and I'll post a picture of this, is the Bumble, the abominable snowman. And he knew about this podcast. Like, I guess I had talked to him about favorite Christmas movies, and somehow got into his head that this Rudolph the Reindeer was one of my favorite Christmas movies. Saw this ornament and was like so excited to give it to me. So here I am opening up my Christmas gifts for my new boyfriend, and I open this ornament, and I'm not familiar with this character.
Was it the snowman?
The abominable snowman.
Yeah. I remember.
And I was just being nice, and I was like, wow, so cool. And he's like, that's from your favorite movie. And I was like, it is?
You probably said like least favorite, but he heard like favorite.
And then he tried to like explain to me like who it was, and it was my favorite movie. I'm like, I've never seen it before. Oh my god! So every time we hang it up on the tree, like we have the biggest giggle about
I remember,
it. I always remind him.
And I remember coming over that time that year, and he was like so excited. He was like, "Look at the Oderman, I got Emily," and I was like, "What?"
Maybe I didn't even tell him that.
Maybe
I was,
that's
like,
when he
too
found
nice.
out. Maybe he was like, "It's her favorite, right?" And I was like, "I'm pretty sure we hate it."
What? Who is this? Like, so funny.
I love it.
Really good. He also got me an order of my cat, and he also thought like it looked exactly like my cat, and I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, have you ever looked at my cat?" And he still, like to this day,
I know.
thinks it looks like
Convinced.
just like Moosh. Oh man, good stuff. Okay, and then lastly, so if you look on the IMDb trivia, so many of the points are around this Antiques Roadshow episode where this guy, ever see Antiques Roadshow, people like show up with like random shit. Sometimes it's worth a lot, sometimes it isn't worth anything. This guy shows up with a Tupperware box, and the people who do the evaluations are always really scared of people with Tupperware boxes because they're like, what the hell is in that? And he pulls out these two figurines, the Santa and the Rudolph puppets from this movie. And the guy goes, listen, my aunt worked for Rankin Bass, and she like kept these after the production of this movie. And the guy was like, oh my God, no way. Santa is missing like half of his beard. Some of his face is pulled off. Rudolph's nose is missing, but overall like in pretty good shape. So the guy's like, okay, like these are amazing. And he like validated the story, and he estimates, they're worth like 10 grand or something at auction. So the guy's like, oh my God, so cool. And I guess they had even other ones, like a lot of other puppets from the movie that then eventually just like melted in their attic. So he had even like a bigger collection.
Melted.
So then that guy keeps tabs on these puppets, the like estimator guy, and finds out that the original guy sold them to somebody else. And then that guy sells them and gets them restored. And then that guy sells them to somebody else. So they're kind of like passing hands. And then the whole episode started in like the early 2000s. So this like goes along the years, like, 20 years span basically. And then the guy checks in, and then these restored ones get put on the auction block at this like special auction that's for like puppets and figurines or something like that. And they end up fetching a price tag of $300,000. So this huge amount of money. And then the anonymous person who bought these ends up donating them to like a museum. Nice. So now you can go to a museum and like see them whenever you want. So like pretty cool that those are like still around. I'm sure they had like several versions of the puppets they like would, but still like that's a pretty big price tag, and like, nostalgia is so big, and especially around these movies. And like the estimator guy, he said when he saw that Tupperware with like these puppets in it, he was just like so like stunned, because he was just one of those people who grew up with this movie and watched it, every year of his life, and he just was like, oh my God, like this is it. So I thought that was really cool. You always like to see those things find a happy home. And also I feel bad for the guy who had them originally. Dang, missed out on $300,000.
I know, strange. Yikes. Is it because of the Tupperware that he put them in the Tupperware? I don't know.
Well, he just like didn't, you leave those things and the guy's like, okay, it's $10,000. Well, it's more money than you had to begin with. They're just sitting in your attic. So he just sold them right away, basically. But he didn't get them restored or anything. So when he got them restored, that like upped their value a bit. And yeah.
Oh, I see. I see.
Pretty cool.
Cool. Love it. All right. Well, anything else? I feel like we discussed most of it in the synopsis.
No, really glad, we watched this.
Yeah, finally.
Am I going to make it part of my, yearly tradition? Maybe.
Maybe parts of it, maybe. But I don't know if I need to watch the whole thing. The long 55 minutes, it's just, I got things to do.
It was sweet.
I'll watch Elf. I mean, Elf is like is probably my favorite Christmas movie. And so I do like that this is kind of like adjacent, since it's basically that movie. So I don't know. I think I get my Rudolph fill from that.
I keep seeing the beginning of Elf only. Like, I just keep stumbling upon like the first 20 minutes, and I'm so annoyed because I just like want to sit down and watch the whole thing. But I have a plan next week to just have Christmas movies in the background. Like, I'm still working next week, but like just have Christmas movies playing in the background like all day of all the ones I want to watch to try to like catch up on them, because I have like such high hopes. I was going to make this whole list and everything, but like I'm just like too tired tonight to watch a movie. So like I said, I've only watched the real kid ones with my daughter, so that has been knocked off my list.
Nice. Yeah, I feel good about it. Finally done. Jimmy can stop asking us to do it.
I know.
Love it.
Now all we have to do is do Angus.
So for our next Christmas movie, Sweetie has taken the reins, so to speak, and has decided both Christmas movies we will be covering. And so next week we will aim to do... I forget
Ernest.
now. Oh, Ernest.
Christmas. Sweetie just rolled her eyes so big. Yeah, I'm just in the mood. I feel like it'll be good. You know, I read some really good reviews of it. I just want to say, as a family favorite, like not the best movie ever, but like puts you in the spirit. So I'm here for it. I'm here for that dumb oaf.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go back and listen to Ernest Scared Stupid and see what we said about never watching another Ernest movie again.
Yeah.
And see if that holds up. But anyways,
Didn't
happy
get
holidays. Happy holidays all. Please don't hate us because we've had a downward spiral in terms of motivation, but we'll be back. And happy holidays from all of us here at Large March sent us. Thank you, as always, for listening. Bye.
Bye.